Good morning, everyone. I think we'll get started now. I'm sure people will join as we go along. Welcome to our June monthly meeting. Just wanted to say hello to everyone. This is Sylvia. We wanted to, get together for our normal monthly meeting for HFI Kenya, and we're having a special presentation today. So just wanted to give you a quick update on one item, and then we'll dive into our presentation. So as you guys know, working with UBPA, we have been trying to organize kind of a group testing for the KEBS certification process. We have been using Beatrice as our guinea pig, and she has gone through, at least started the process and submitted her paperwork to start the testing process. So what we've done now, Abby has put together a presentation, kind of a step-by-step, here's how you go about it, here's the forms, here's how you get reimbursed for the costs. And she's just finishing that up today with a little more feedback from Beatrice, but she will be sharing that hopefully the end of today. And then we hope you guys can all get launched and get that certification process started. According to KEBS, it takes about 56 days. So I would get started if I were you right away, because who knows if that's actually a real 56 days or if it's going to take a lot longer. So anyway, we can talk at the end. If we have any questions about that at the end, we can go through them. But we'll be, like I said, we'll be sending out a presentation regarding that, so you have very easy summary of what you have to do. So right now I'm going to turn it over to Ellen Finn. Ellen, which many of you guys know from Ashes, is a marketing executive who's done a lot of work with the Charcoal Project and with entrepreneurs in our group. And her and Caroline Liu, who Caroline's been interning for the Charcoal Project, have been working for the last couple months on a project to talk about lean marketing research, so that first to give you an idea of what's involved with lean marketing research. And then they have specifically done a case study with Moza Ahmed from Briq'O'Blaze in Mombasa, so that you guys can see lean marketing research in action. So with that, I'm going to share my screen so that you guys see the presentation, and then we're going to turn it over to Ellen. So let me do that now. Okay, Ellen, it's all yours.
Okay, great. So hello, everybody. It's great to be back with you. I always love working with you guys, and we've kind of spent a couple of sessions together talking about a couple of subjects. And Sylvia asked this time to talk about lean market research. And I know that's a term that you have probably all heard before, at least the term lean. It is one that's thrown around a lot. So Sylvia, if you go to page 2, I just want to kind of start by talking a little bit about what we really mean by lean. Because as I said, you've probably heard a lot about it. It's a term that really became part of the lexicon and popularized by this book by Eric Rice called The Lean Startup. And the core idea there is that companies shouldn't spend too much time and money trying to develop the perfect product. Like, just, you don't have to go that far to make sure it's perfect before you go out there and introduce your product. Rather, organizations should quickly introduce what's called a minimum viable product. You may have heard that, MVP, to the market, and then quickly measure how that performs. How do customers respond to it? And then quickly learn from that, and then optimize, change course, or continue down that same build out in the same direction based on what you've seen. And this is something that, as I said, was popularized by this book, The Lean Startup, but it has been around. It was first really came to light through manufacturing and production industries. In fact, having an assembly line was one of the first examples of lean. But it has really become now part of our lexicon. And of course, it's continuing now in the marketing space. So if you go to page 3, and think about the basis of now applying that idea of lean to lean marketing. It follows the premise of this, this graphic, what you see here, which is the build, measure, and learn process. And it really is the next evolution of marketing. The world is changing so fast. Technologies are changing so fast. Customer needs are changing so fast. Customer expectations are changing so fast that we can no longer do things in the traditional way that was very deliberate and time consuming. And again, looking for perfection before it went out of the market. No, that's done now. Let's put things out there. Let's learn fast. Let's iterate, and let's, continually learn, because that is really the pace of the world today. So this build, measure, and learn format is the basis of it. So it starts with like an idea. You may have an idea, some kind of, and this could be for a product. It could be your briquettes, but it could also just be a marketing tactic. It could be a way to communicate, or some kind of an activity that you like to do, but you have that idea. You quickly build it out. I'm sure you've heard a lot about prototyping and stuff. You build it out in a way that you can just put it out in the market. It's just enough. It's that minimum viable product, or minimum viable idea even. You put it out there, and then you quickly measure.
Check the password too. Sorry.
That's okay. Then you quickly measure it. Having some sort of, quantifiable metrics in mind. Could be your sales, it could be adoption, whatever it is, some kind of metrics that you are following there. And then you get the learnings. Quickly, you look at them, you analyze them, you come up with some kind of an insight, whether what's working, what's not working, and then you iterate and continue the process all over again. That's why it's a circle. It's never ending. You're always learning. So that's really the basis of lean marketing, and lean anything is about that 3-phase continuous cycle. If you go into page 4, Sylvia, some of the principles that we might think about for lean market research. Now, lean market research is really what's going to be taking place in that learn phase. We may want to put out there some market research. And when we do that, some of the principles for that are quite simple. It's the idea here is to be accessible and simple for anybody, any organization to do, no matter the size. So some principles are one, they're very obvious. Engage with customers directly. Okay, everything about this is about how the customer is responding. So get out there, talk with your customers. Put a higher value on quality conversations or quantity. One of the traditional aspects of market research was always about having that perfect sample audience. You had a certain percent of each demographic. They were supposed to reflect, the whole breadth of your customer base. These 1,000 people surveys that are being done. Really, lean market research is putting that value on quality conversations over quantity. And it's about observation, it's not just about getting people together, but it's what you see, to really have that keen eye to what you're watching, what you're viewing every time you come into contact with your customer, and collect that information and collect those insights. And I know we all, observe, but I think the aspect of using all those observations in a really analytical kind of way might escape us. So think about how you can have some kind of a database. And then by database, I mean, it might be a spiral notebook, it might be an Excel spreadsheet, but someplace where you're really documenting what you see, as banal as it may seem when you're seeing it, but write it down, and you'll have this collection of insights that you can then refer back to when you're really starting to put, some thoughts together about improvement. Collaborate with the customers when making your product better. And this is huge, from the biggest companies in the world to the smallest now, it's all about collaborating with the customers. I do a lot of work with Walmart, and Walmart is a partner with us, and they partner to make sure that, we're delivering what their customers need. It's no longer us and them, but there's a huge amount of collaboration that goes for the automotive industry. It goes for everything. So, take the input from your customers very, very seriously and keep them involved as you're making these changes. Go back to them and say, does this work? We talked about how we could potentially light these briquettes more easily. How did that go for you? Continue to keep them in your conversations. And all of this really amounts to you being absolutely committed to being the voice of the customer. That's a term that we use a lot, but you're a manufacturer, you're a producer, you're a distributor, you have all these business roles that you are, but you're also the voice of the customer. And you really have to kind of shift gears and make sure that you're always reflecting what the customer wants, as opposed to what you as the business person want to get out of the customer. And that's really the key to success, is being in the shoes of the customer at all times. And then lastly, page 5 there, Sylvia, just some tips on where to start. And basically the rest of this presentation is going to show you how we started with Moza. But the first thing to do is to really think about who your target is. Who is your customer? And as I said, you're going to have varied customers. So it's important to kind of hone in on who it is you want to learn about, what your specific target is, and create a simple persona. Now you'll see in the example that we're going to talk about, it's as simple as we're talking about heads of household. So the person that's really responsible for cooking all the meals, which is absolutely fine as your target for this, And then when you think about persona, that just means you're putting a little bit of color behind that. And you're saying, okay, it's the head of household. And, this is typically, I'm going to say the wife, and she's got kids and she's busy and she's, maybe got all these other responsibilities. And it's just kind of creating some richness around something like head of household. This isn't the time to go deep into persona, but what is important is that you always understand who it is you're talking to. And then basically where to start is conversations, interviews, conduct individual interviews, talk to these people, find out what the needs and wants they have, what problem they're solving, get feedback. We're going to take you through that case study. But as I said, it's more about quality over quantity. So individuals are great. Small groups of people are great. You got 3 or 4 heads of households together, have a conversation. But what lean marketing research kind of avoids are large groups, the old traditional focus groups where you've got, a dozen people sitting around a table reacting to something, because there's a lot of group influence that happens that way. And, you don't necessarily get to the rich insights of each individual person. And then lastly, this is about down and dirty. This kind of research can be done very inexpensively and very fast. And you can use methods like Facebook and WhatsApp. So again, it doesn't require fancy market research companies, and it doesn't require the kind of time and expense of that. So that's just a little bit, to set us up for this really great opportunity we had with Moza Ahmed to do just this with her company, Briq'O'Blaze. So we're now going to get into a case study. If you can go on to page 6. And then actually, if we can jump into page 7, Sylvia, and I'm going to ask Moza to actually take us through the build and measure and learn model with her business, Briq'O'Blaze. Can you take it away, Moza?
Yes. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone.
Uh-oh. We lost your audio, Moza.
Am I clear? Hello? Am I
No.
clear?
That was better.
No. It's
That-
the laptop.
Okay, I think we're good now.
Yeah. Okay. The idea for doing this case study, it is we had to try to build up a new selling structures. Now let me talk about what idea I had. We had the idea with Alan. Thank you, Alan and Caroline. We went through doing this internet talking on one and having these forms for these customers to fill in, so that we can know what do they really think about our product. So I was very surprised what I learned here. Why why are we still using kerosene that is gone up? Why are we still use gas that's gone up? And our briquettes are very cheap compared to the normal charcoal. And our briquettes, of course, we all know, burns longer. But still, we're still having those trials. And the idea we got, so
Moza, okay, sorry.
you can hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. The challenges we got is trying to get the kiosk owners to use briquettes as a substitute for their wood logs. It's very unhealthy for them. They're complaining about their chest pains and the coughs and the surrounding area. Everyone is complaining about the smoke going to the sitting room. Houses are very close, attached together. Most of the kiosks are just outside your buildings. So that is the challenge, to get them to get comfortable with our, and they still say that when they mix these two with the no, the wood and our briquettes, they, 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 they want to have this flavor in their food. They think that our briquettes do not give them flavor. Okay, that's
Okay.
the yeah, that's the challenge we got. And too much ash, that's what we found out. Too much ash, which we still having. Everyone is selling barbecue in Mombasa. We don't know how to control it, so I'm just a distributor for now, and I'm trying out different types of briquettes to see which is not producing too much ash. Ash has to be there. As I tell them, it's eco energy. It's friendly for environment. So if you don't get A, you'll get B. But the measures we are taking is the measures that we decided, the group that we have formed together, is to come together and to teach them, to educate our customers, to go out there networking, to do one-on-one. Some people are very shy when I did the interview one-on-one. When I wanted to take pictures, they think that they were afraid of me taking pictures. So I took out my sons. My son went there. They were more open to the men than they were open to me. Okay.
Yeah.
And yes, they were not open to me. They were not comfortable talking to me.
So, if you will, because that's a lot. That's some really great insight about the process and everything, and we're going to get through into a little bit of the tactics we took for the market research, so you can continue to tell us some of your reactions to that. I kind of want to go back a little bit, just in terms of coming into this piece of market research. When I talked to Moza and thinking about this lean marketing model of build, measure, and learn. And reading about Moza's business, Briq'O'Blaze, you think about this idea, the principle here. You start with an idea, and this idea is one that you all have had, which is the idea of developing a clean energy alternative. And then, in terms of building a minimum viable product, as we call it, Moza, went out and thought about how she can get something to market. And there in her role, I know she partnered with Eco Energy, which is actually the manufacturer of the briquettes, and she distributes them. So that's how they came together to form a product to put out in the market, a charcoal that's based on charcoal dust and coconut shell, really delivering against this idea of a clean source and a sustainable form of charcoal. Put it out in the market. She's been there now for a few years, is measuring it, And in fact, my understanding, Moza, is that business was going very well and business is growing, but then it plateaued, and it plateaued at a level of about 4 to 6 bags of briquettes. And that's a measurement, she's measuring the sales, and she sees now it's become very obvious through that measurement and through that data that I've plateaued. I've got to start now thinking and learning from that and what happens next. So we really triggered now this learning phase with her to ask ourselves what you see on the left-hand side of this page: why have sales plateaued? What are the barriers to trial? Who should we be talking to? Who's the most attractive customer? Is it kiosks? Is it household? What really matters to them? What's the best way to talk to them? Because Moza has in her mind this idea, like, if I can get the selling story right, if I can get the words out of my mouth that are really going to trigger people to use more, that would be very helpful. So this led us down the pike to say, Moza, let's do a lean market research study to answer some of these questions that she's alluded to in her intro. So I'm going to now turn it over to Caroline, and she's going to take us through the approach to the learning to help Moza answer these questions. If you can go to page 8, and Caroline, if you could take the stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caroline, so I'm just going to take you through this. Okay, so we developed an approach to finding the answers to these questions and gaining insight into customer behavior using lean research. First, we identified 2 target customers whom we felt were key to Moza's business, which were the heads of households who prepare the meals for a family, and kiosk owners who cook as a livelihood, selling their food at kiosks in Mombasa. We then planned a survey to be launched on Briq'O'Blaze's Facebook page. We created the survey using Google Forms, which is a simple and free survey builder. It was a forced response questionnaire, meaning the questions make survey respondents choose an answer that indicates a definitive opinion. So essentially just not open-ended questions. We also used Canva to develop the Facebook ads, as you can see in the left-hand corner in the left side. And Moza offered a discount on her briquettes to attract and incentivize survey participants. So we had unique ads for kiosks and head of households, as you can see. In addition, we planned more in-depth one-on-one interviews with both heads of households and kiosk owners, allowing for additional comments after each question. Okay. Next slide, please. So in creating these market research materials, we always kept the problem to be solved in mind. That is, how do we get heads of households and kiosk owners to convert their purchase or usage of wood charcoal, kerosene, or gas to Briq'O'Blaze charcoal briquettes? Big question. All right, thank you. So let's take you through creating an insightful questionnaire. Before you start writing the questions, ask yourself, what would you like to be able to get from the study? Next, you collaborate with others on what your assumptions surrounding consumer motivations and needs are. So these assumptions are to be disproven or proven with your questions. And then lastly, develop questions that, when answered, will result in a clear story. You need actionable data that will help you achieve your goals. So that's what you need to do there. Okay. Moza used a combination of in-person and more in-depth one-on-one interviews because one, the online objective was to cast a wider net and to get a little more quantity and potentially more varied source of customers. And also that the objective for the one-on-one interviews was to go deeper by having quality conversations. Just to quickly, some pros and cons for in-person versus online surveys. For in-person surveys, the pros are the interviewer can explain any confusion surrounding the questions or how to answer the questions that the respondent has, and they can provide more in-depth answers. The respondent can provide more in-depth answers if the interviewer gives the respondent space for any additional comments after answering questions, which Moza did. The cons would be that in-person interviews are more time consuming. They require scheduling and traveling to a place where you're going to meet. And it'll also take longer to complete with the additional questions. Then also once written responses are received, it requires data entry. So you've got to take the paper responses and put them into a spreadsheet or Google form. And then also, it's really important for in-person interviews to make sure that you aren't leading the person toward an answer, because that can compromise the data. So also quickly, for online surveys, the pros would be convenience. Respondents can answer questions on their own schedule, and they can have flexibility with completion time. As I mentioned earlier, you can also cast a broader net of respondents. And some cons would be that certain populations are less likely to have internet access and to respond to online questionnaires. And also there's no interviewer to clarify and probe, which can lead to some less reliable data. All right. So next slide. Thank you. Here's an overview of the questionnaire, which you are totally free to use for your own businesses. Okay, so we developed a concise questionnaire. It's good to keep to about 10 to 11 questions. Each question should be very intentional to elicit responses that provide new information or validate something that is in question. The order of the questions should also be considered. They should be logical to the respondent, with each question leading into the following one. In Moza's questionnaire, we start by asking, 1, how many types of fuel they use. And then that's followed up by asking, which single fuel do they use the most? So before we dig in further, we ask them to tell us how they perceive the different fuels to rank in cost, from on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest and 5 being the highest. Now, then on to the 4th question, we ask them to tell us, if price was no object, which one would they use? 5, then they're asked to, then they're asked actually to provide the reason why they would ideally use that fuel. For 6, we're switching gears a bit and ask them if they're familiar with charcoal briquettes and have they ever used them. Then we go into, we're asking for more details on why briquettes are not their ideal fuel. And these are the barriers to using briquettes, barriers to use. The final questions touch on some potential opportunities, first asking where they buy their fuel, and then an open-ended question asking what would make their purchase easier. And lastly, we probe about how concerned they are about the effects of cooking fuels on their health, and how concerned they are about the environmental impact of deforestation. So a link to the survey is at the end of the presentation deck, which will be sent around to everyone later. Again, please feel free to use this questionnaire for your own lean market research. Okay, next slide, please. All right, once the surveys are administered by online survey, the response can be easily downloaded from Google Forms into an Excel sheet or Google Sheets for a spreadsheet. So you can do that. It's in the bottom left image. So that's when you get to Google Forms. So having compiled data into a spreadsheet allows for clear analysis with all the data in one place. For one-on-one interviews, you will need to enter the data you received on paper from the respondents into the Google form or directly into the spreadsheet. So Google Forms is really cool because it also illustrates the results in graph form in the responses section, which really helps to visualize the results. Just quickly, for the number of responses that we got from Moza's online surveys, we had 6 heads of households complete the survey through Facebook, and then 0 kiosk owners, which is fine. So next time we just need to, when we send surveys online, we need to figure out how to reach more people. Additionally, Moza had one-on-one interviews with 5 heads of households and 5 kiosk owners. So in total, we have data from 16 respondents here. With the results in this Google Sheets format and also in the graph forms, we then spent time with Moza discussing the data and building some key findings, which Ellen will take you through. take it away.
Great. Before I go through the findings and the implications, maybe a good time to just pause for 1 second and see if you guys have any questions up to this point. I know everyone's probably on mute, so if anybody has a question, take yourself off of mute and shoot away.
Yes, hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
I'm Beatrice from EcoCharcoal Limited. So thank you. Yeah, it's very interesting to go through the case study of Moza. But I wanted to know if before launching the survey on Facebook or WhatsApp, if Moza, do you know the percentage of household customers and kiosk owner customers who are online and who are really active on Facebook or who are really active on WhatsApp? And because I know that sometimes we have some target, maybe we can be visible online, but they are not especially following us on Facebook. I know we have some customers, yeah, we are in touch with them, but they are not active on Facebook. They are not checking every single time we are posting a new information. They don't see it especially. So I wanted to know what is the percentage of household and a kiosk owner who are following you on Facebook and who could easily see, your survey on Facebook. Thank you.
So I can answer that. So household clients, kiosk owners, very few. But when I put any advert online, what I do is I like my own advert. That is what Sylvia gave me that idea. Just like your own advert, so that the people can be alert. And then the second thing, I like sharing into stories. Now that stories, people love checking the stories. They get attracted to that. Now kiosk owners, I don't think we got any response. I don't have any kiosk owners on my page that I know of. But household are mostly the people around us that are friends and networking. They know about the briquettes and who are using. And how I knew that they were interested in they could see my advert. They paged me through the messenger, Facebook Messenger, asking me questions, asking me about the pricing, yeah. And they asked for samples, and some just took maybe like 5 kg to try it out before they answered the question. So at least I got clients who didn't know what briquettes were, and they wanted to try out the briquettes. So they bought like 5 kgs to try it, and at least that was good. I got their attention somehow. So when you post Beatrice, make sure that you like and then share to your Facebook stories. That way, everyone will see.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, thank you, Moza. And also, I have another question, Moza. It's about your 4-6 bags of briquettes per month. It's bags of which quantity?
50 kg.
It's 50 kgs. Yeah?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And And you do sell to the household or the kiosk owner how many kgs? Are they purchasing by 2 kilos, 5 kilos, 10 kilos, or even 20 kilos or even more?
No, usually from 10, 15, 20, not 50 because they mix.
Mm-hmm.
I still have to dig the kiosk owners. They have to have confidence with our briquettes.
Mm-hmm.
That is when I'm going to talk to you later, Beatrice, so that I can see if your chalk less ash.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Moza.
I just wanted to add on the Facebook postings that you could do things in addition to liking and putting it in a story. You could also very inexpensively boost your post and select the audience that you want to see. So you can increase the visibility of the post that way too. Just just as a dish, way to get it out there a little bit more. And, just little things like asking your friends to share it for you. We'll get that post out there.
Great. All right, so let's go through the findings. I think you'll find them very interesting. If you start with page 14, Sylvia. And I've got, I think it's seven findings, and I'm using the word findings really intentionally. These are results. These are just results. They're not actions. They're just results. And what we learned, first of all, probably unsurprising to all of you, is that the awareness of charcoal briquettes is good. Most people have heard of them and have used them, and but they are one of 2 to 3 fuel sources that everybody uses. Here you see an example of how you can visualize the data. This one is very, very simple, but a pie chart to show how many people use 1, 2, 3, or 4 fuel sources, and everybody, each of the target audiences do, stack their fuel sources and have several. So really confirming, I think, what you guys have all has seen yourself. Key finding number 2, page 15, is that Moza is finding in her market that the charcoal briquettes are fighting a 2-front battle for customers. She has the heads of household and the kiosk owners, but interestingly, the heads of household, while using 2 to 3 fuel source, they use gas as their primary source. Whereas the kiosk owners who use 2 to 3 fuel sources, their primary fuel sources are wood charcoal or briquettes. So, she can't treat these 2 target audiences the same because their primary fuel source are different from each other. So you have to think about that. Key finding number 3, page 16, is that the price perception of these different fuel sources are fairly accurate. If you'll remember, this is the question where we said, can you rank these 5 different fuel sources on a scale of 1 to 5 from the lowest to the most expensive? And this was done because Moza and we all wondered, do people really have a valid perception of what the price value is of these? They rank them, as you see, pretty much across the board, with some exceptions, there's always outliers, but across the board, they saw charcoal briquettes as being the lowest price alternative and gas being the highest. And then in between there is wood charcoal, which was just above the charcoal briquettes, probably reflecting a pricing strategy by charcoal briquettes to just go under the cost of wood charcoal to kind of get into that marketplace. What I thought was really interesting was wood was actually perceived to be more expensive than those 2 in the middle. And, Moza and people, as we were analyzing this data, said that could be true because this is an urban market. So wood is, in fact, sold in small bundles at a premium. So it's not that that inexpensive. And then kerosene and gas being the highest. So once we got this information, we asked Moza, does it make sense? What are the real prices out there? And sure enough, it seemed to be fairly accurate. So misconception of pricing on the part of the customers might not be the biggest issue here. Key finding number 4 on page 17 is that when asked about what their ideal fuel source is, if cost wasn't an issue, really depends on the lifestyle of the target audience. So for kiosk owners and lower class households, and I'll get to that in a second, what I mean by lower class households, and if cost didn't matter, they would prefer using gas all the time. And why is that? We followed up with that question because it burns cleaner, it's easy to light and use, it creates less ash, better for the environment, easily accessible, those things that we heard Moza kind of talk about. So that's the ideal world for kiosk owners and these lower class households. Now, interestingly, there was a group of respondents who replied differently, and those happened to be the Facebook respondents. So the people that responded online had a different point of view. They would prefer using wood charcoal or briquettes all the time, which we thought was very, very interesting. And, when talking through that with Moza, we kind of came to the conclusion that, these people, and she because she knew some of these people who interviewed, she said, yes, these are households that are a bit more affluent, and they really value the flavor of using wood and charcoals, and they're able to do so for occasions, when they just really value the quality of the food that they're eating. And I guess because they're more affluent households, they can afford to spend the time and they can afford to kind of make more of an occasion out of it. And they like the briquettes and wood charcoal, I should say, because they're better, well, briquettes anyway, better for the environment. They burn cleaner than other fuels. It burns longer than other fuels. Certainly that's an advantage for those two. And then for wood charcoal specifically, it tastes better. So this is now getting into some more complexity and some more like deeper understanding of the customer. If we go to page 18, key finding number 5 is that charcoal briquettes do suffer from perceived product deficiency. So when we said for those people that don't prefer charcoal briquettes as their number one source, why? And this was really pointed. 9 of the 14, 15 people who responded of this question said they create too much ash, and 5 people said they're hard to light. So again, this is real good validation to those issues about the perceived product deficiencies. Then on number 19, Sylvia, key finding number 6 is that, all right, we asked here now, what would make your fuel purchase easier? And we just used that term vaguely for a reason, because we wanted to hear what proactively came out of people's minds. And it was really interesting as well, because you'll see the word here, delivery, a lot. Online delivery, door-to-door delivery, free delivery, reduced delivery fees. This was the overwhelming response, was that, what would make their life easier? I mean, remember, we're the voice of the customer. We're always thinking about what we can do to add greater value to the customer. It seems that better delivery options is a real opportunity and something that they would value based on these findings. And then the last learning, finding number 7, so 20, is regarding those last 2 questions about the effect of these fuel sources on the environment and on their health. We found that customers acknowledge the environmental impact of the fuel choices, but they're less concerned or less educated about the health impact of cooking fuels. So you can see on the left-hand side, the effect of cooking fuel on your family's health. The responses were sort of all over the place. 4 people rated it a 5, which means they were very, very concerned. 9 people rated it a 4, which meant they were concerned. But you also had people saying, no, they weren't concerned at all and gave it a 1 or a 2. Whereas on the right-hand side, when we asked about deforestation as a result of wood or wood charcoal, 12 people rated it as very, very concerned. So it seems like there's probably been a lot of efforts out there in the marketplace to educate and to get people concerned about the environmental impact, but it's still a little bit wishy-washy whether they really, really respond to and the idea of the health concerns resonating with them. So as I said, these are findings. These are just like the information that came out of here. It's data, it's facts, it's just very simple results. So on page 21, what next? What do we do with this? So the next page, 22, we need to move from these findings, these disparate 7 facts and findings, to some real insights. And why do we have to do that? And what's the difference between these findings and the insights? It's really that the findings are observations and data that we get. But insights, what we do with those, are discoveries that inform action. So we don't know what to do with these findings. We just have them. How can we translate them into statements that really say, aha, what I should do with this information is X, Y, or Z? And you can only do that by this process of kind of interrogation or root cause analysis, which you've probably heard of and done yourself, but it's so fundamental and it's really so simple, and it's just asking why. And so that's what we did with each of these questions. You kind of dig into them, and then you get to something that's more actionable. So I'll just take you through a quick sort of example. If we have a finding that kiosk owners would prefer to use gas all the time, and we say, well, why is that? And they're going to tell you, or we can assume, well, it's easier, it's more convenient. Okay, well, why is it? Well, because then I don't have to spend time lighting it. and that makes it easier and more convenient. Well, why? Why does that matter? Well, it means I have to wait 20 minutes before I can put anything on the grill every single day. Like, okay, well, why is that a problem? Just start your grill 20 minutes earlier. Well, because that's time I could be making money instead of just waiting. Well, why does that matter? Well, because every hour I can sell food, help support my family. So you get to something that's not about, oh, great, this is more convenient. It's about, I, as a kiosk owner, am consumed by the idea of supporting my family and running my business as efficiently as I possibly can to make every minute count. And then you kind of say, okay, that's great. Now my job as the marketer and as the producer is to help this person run a more efficient business and, respect their time. And it becomes about time and not about just, some kind of vague sense of ease or convenience. So easy to do, it's just ask why. So we did that, and now I'm going to take you through just 2 pages of the insights that came out of those findings that we talked to Moza about. So page 23, Sylvia. The first one is for the kiosk owners. So you heard what the results were, and we kind of turned those results as findings into this insight. Kiosk owners, as business people, value their time and demand an efficiently run business. They don't want to deal with hard-to-light briquettes or a pile of ashy residue at the end of the day. An easily lit gas stove would be great if only it weren't so expensive. So now with that kind of a premise, that kind of an insight about a kiosk owner, Moza can work on a lot of implications and possible action steps that she could take. For instance, she could focus on messaging. You heard her say she's really interested in creating sort of a sales story, selling stories. She could work on messaging that focuses on the improved taste from using briquettes, providing the kiosk with a better product than their gas using competitors. Okay, so that's one way to go. Yes, gas may be more convenient, but my kiosk has the best tasting food because of the quality of my briquettes. Another implication could be that I'm going to provide an added value service of online delivery, online ordering and delivery. And by doing so, I'm increasing the kiosk owner's efficiency and providing a competitive advantage over other fuels. Or lastly, she could focus on training and the benefit. This is really like a paradigm shift. Now we know that ash is a problem or is a perceived problem, but the training could focus on the benefit of having more ash. What does it mean when you see ash in there? Your fuel is still working. It keeps the coals burning longer. We talked about efficiency. You've got this fuel source that's continuing to cook the food, even when the fuel source is, sort of depleted in a sense, but it's continuing working. So it's really flipping a negative into a positive when it comes to ashiness, to the ash. The second insight for kiosks was about the pricing issue. Kiosk owners feel that they almost are compromising. They have to use wood, charcoal, or briquettes because gas is just too expensive. Boy, I wish I could use gas, but I have to use wood or wood charcoal. So how can we kind of flip that into a positive for them? Well, the messaging for kiosk owners could focus on their customers' preference for food cooked over a flame versus gas. So, play up that message, maybe do some interesting little bit of research on that and get some consumer words, the voice of the consumer, how they prefer food cooked over a flame. And you can also focus on consumers or the customer's preference for an environmentally correct choice. We saw that most everybody believes in the environmental benefits of a more sustainable fuel. So you could really focus on that. This specifically against wood charcoal, wouldn't work against gas, but it will work against wood charcoal. So there now, Moza has some clean action points that she can take to start like putting into play in terms of her messaging, training, and whatnot. On the next page on 24, we did the same thing for households. And here we have 2 insights. The first one being, heads of households have increasingly busy lives and are spending less time preparing meals over an open flame, opting for gas instead. thinking about the process of buying, lighting, tending to, and cleaning up briquette ash is a real burden. Because I think you have a pretty good kind of picture from there about what these heads of households are going through. That's the insight. So implications here for Moza could be, again, providing convenient online ordering and delivery could reinvigorate their interest in cooking over fuel. You know, I mean, okay, if I take out the time required to go and buy my charcoal briquettes, but they're delivered immediately to my house, I might say, I'm going to cook over briquettes tonight, you know, and make a more deliberate, longer processed meal. Or messaging could focus on preparing more festive meals and slow cook menus over briquettes. You know, she could launch some kind of a recipe sort of communication to say, let's make this, you know, all day long cooking sort of, or all day long menu for a family celebration, and increase usage by promoting that kind of cooking as opposed to fast gas cooking. Or training in her packaging could illustrate, and we were talking about literally illustrating through like little images how to easily light briquettes. We saw that that was a barrier, and you know, I know there's a lot of issues in technology and tips and tricks about that. I don't know the details of that, but how could you potentially provide quick and easy information on more easily lighting the briquettes and educating on that, as well as educating on how ash is a sign of that long-lasting, you know, benefit of the fuel for keeping food warm. So that's through training and packaging. And then the second insight we had for households was heads of households from more affluent families, remember these are those Facebook families, appreciate the social and gastronomical value of a slow cooked meal over open coals. Okay, these are people that supposedly have enough time that they can, you know, have a nice, relaxed, long cooking day, and they appreciate that cooking over open coals, with wood charcoal being the ultimate in flavor. So wood charcoal is seen as being more so than charcoal briquettes. So one of the implications is that Moza could have tasting demos comparing food cooked over wood charcoal versus briquette to show that they're just as flavorful, or you know, have even different preferred flavors. The messaging could focus on briquettes as the environmentally correct choice versus wood charcoal. That's a big win right there, obviously. And she could as well talk about that added value service of providing online ordering and delivering, you know, increasing the efficiency and providing a competitive advantage over other fuels. Again, you know, that idea that if this stuff magically appeared at your doorstep on a regular basis or a push of a button, then it's going to trigger more usage opportunities for the heads of households as well. So that was a lot, but that's 2 pages of, I think, really actionable things. Now, they're not all going to be the right thing to do. They might not all work, you know, perfectly the first time. That's what Lean is all about, iterating. Obviously, Moza will have to really pare this down and think about what the most important things are to do, and then build a strategy out of that. That's not for today's workshop. You know, we could actually probably do another workshop at another point where we talk about building a sales story out of insights that are gleaned from lean market research. But I think, you know, Moza's off to a great start now with this information. So we don't have too much time left, but I guess it's a good time, you know, we just have one more page for a wrap up, but let's open up for questions again to see if you guys, you know, have any thoughts about what we just talked about. Questions for me, questions for Moza? Am I still on?
You're still on, they're being shy.
Eileen, thank you so much for sharing.
Hi, Dorothy.
Hi. And thank you, Moza. This is wonderful. We have learned so much.
Welcome.
Eileen, I am in the rural where not so many people have smartphones or know about the internet. So I was just wondering, can I do this manually?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that's, you know, the fundamental way. In fact, we're going to give you the questionnaire So you can take the questionnaire manually. This is what Moza did with half of the audience. And, you know, you tick off the answers, you write verbatims, or you could record it if you do have a phone, and then transcribe it into just some kind of a place where you can compare the information. But absolutely, it can be done manually.
And how do can I still take that manual information and put it into a Google Docs and do a kind of summary or analyze it?
Absolutely. That's exactly what Caroline did. She took Moza's interviews, which were sent to us. Moza emailed them all to us, and Caroline put them into a Google Docs so that we could have all the information in one place and consolidate those responses. And then you can get the pie charts and the graphs as well. So it's a good tool to use for that database, as I was saying. If you don't have Google Forms or whatever, you could do it on a simple Excel spreadsheet as well. But the Google Docs is a great place to put it in. It's like you really are just filling out, if you did 10 in-person interviews, you just input 10, 10 physical interviews into Google Docs, customer 1, 2, customer 1, customer 2, customer 3, customer 4. And we actually, at the end of this deck that you'll be sent, there's the links to Google Forms, rather. There's a link to Google Forms. There's a link to a tutorial on Google Forms, so you can see how to do that.
Ellen, maybe you could talk a little bit about, if Dorothy was going to do this kind of thing, I feel like Moza was very, she kind of knew who she was speaking with for the most part. Yeah. When she did those individual interviews. Does it make sense to do a more anonymous interview, like standing on a street corner and interviewing people walking by type of thing? Or are these better done with either known users or a known audience?
Yeah, known in terms of, Moza literally knew some, these people. They were customers and friends, which is great. You don't have to know them to that extent, but I would say, the man on the street interviews, it depends what you want to get, right? If you're looking to get something that's reactionary, do you like A or B? That sort of thing is fine for man on the street. But when you're trying to really get into insights, that are not superficial responses, then I don't think man on the street is so great, because people are busy, they feel they're being interrupted. That's not a great way. You could potentially acquire people from man on the street. Hey, would you mind, spending 10 minutes with me on an interview, and exchanging telephone numbers or something. But you could get some superficial responses that way. So try to, get, like we said, quality over quantity, get a good amount of time, be able to have them focused and really giving their full attention to the task at hand. So let me just do the last page, summary and implications on page 26. And it's really what we just said, but this idea is a great model for continuous improvements. And we talked about lean market research, but it's lean anything, whatever you're doing, think about that idea of building it first, whatever it is. You have an idea, build it quickly. Don't worry about it being perfect. Put it into the market, measure it, understand what success looks like, and have some measurement for it, and then learn from it, and ask the customer, how they feel about it. Take that learning and improve, or continue doing what's really working, but do it for anything. Something, that I don't think talked too much about, but when you're doing this, don't do it by yourself. It's not about me getting the research and then sitting behind a desk and writing out these implications. You talk with Moza, call back your customers. Did I understand you right? I see that you rank these fields differently than I expected. Can I ask why? But bring people together to really to build a richer insight that that reflects, other people's thoughts. And lastly, as we said, we always say steal with pride. It was a case study, but it's a case study for you. It's something that we hope that you can use. You literally can pull up this questionnaire from Google Forms. We're going to send it to you. Maybe there's a couple of questions you want to change, but hopefully, this will like kind of kickstart you into doing something like this as well. But one thing we don't want you to do is to take Moza's results and assume that they work for you, because all the results are very, very, very market specific. So her learnings are really, really valid for her. But let's not assume, and that's actually kind of a caveat for anything. Don't assume, never ever assume that they're going to be right for your market. You got to do the work yourself and get those insights for your markets.
Excuse me, I have something for Dorothy.
Yeah.
You have live live workshops. Can you do a workshop at your place? You invite the ladies around, do a workshop, show them how to use this. Will it work there? Maybe you can try. You can try.
Yeah, we have been doing that,
Mhm.
but not so much lately because of COVID.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
I wanted to invite people here. They asked me, do I provide tea?
You could
Yeah,
show them how to make tea on the briquette.
Yeah, exactly.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Dorothy, and yeah, I think that's a good idea, those workshops you do, then just add the interview component to the workshop. So you're not just teaching, but you're also learning from them.
Right.
And it becomes
Yeah.
more interactive and more two-way.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can make an open discussion. Yeah, we have to understand what we offer. As I
People,
said,
Mhm.
people
we have
like to be heard, so.
yes. Mm.
Well, this was, if there's not any more questions, we'll wrap it up here. But this was really great. Thank you, Ellen and Caroline, for all your hard work. This was very insightful. I think that I think everyone's going to get a lot out of it. I do want to reiterate what Ellen was saying was steal the questions, but not the insights. Because just looking at the two, Moza and Dorothy, who were just speaking, they're going to have very different customer bases and very different insights from their meetings, from their interviews. So really, really appreciate it, Ellen. Thank you again for providing such useful and actionable information for this group.
Pleasure.
So just want to wrap up quickly. Thanks again to Ellen. Also want to remind everybody that obviously Dan and I are still available for mentoring calls. Those have fallen off a little bit. I think everybody's been busy with reacting to COVID, but we just want to encourage you again to keep up with those calls. I had a nice call with unintentionally, but it turned out to be a good call with Kamathi last week. And I hope you guys will all keep in touch with us. Dan, if you're still on, not sure if we have set a tech lunch for this month. If so, hop on and let us know, or you can send a reminder out to everybody. The next thing is the certification, which as I said in the beginning, we're going to send out details of later today. Please get started. Let's get this going. Let's try to see how everyone can make progress with this, and let's set a goal of having everyone in the group getting their product certified. And then the final topic, our next group meeting, which would normally be on July 5th, that's a holiday here. And the following week on a Monday isn't good for me. So I was wondering how people felt about moving it to a Tuesday or a Wednesday. If anyone has a comment on that, let us know. Otherwise, Dan and I will just try to come up with a date that works. No thoughts on that? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna sign us off now, but thanks again to our presenters today. We really appreciate it. I know Moza does for sure. And I'll be sharing the recording as well as your slides, right, Ellen?
Yes, absolutely.
And so you guys, if there's anything here that you want to review, you'll be able to review it again. So, all right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.